She came home glowing. I told myself it was the job. But somewhere between her new smile and my silence, something changed. She came home glowing. Not just smiling, glowing. The kind of brightness that feels like it came from somewhere else. Like she'd stepped into sunlight and hadn't fully come back. She said work was going well. That she'd finally clicked with her new team. New clients, new energy. It's a good stretch, she called it, dropping her bag by the door like it didn't weigh her down. I told myself that was good. Healthy. That I should be happy for her. But I watched her slip off her heels, hum a tune I didn't recognize, and lean against the kitchen counter with a kind of ease that didn't belong to us. She told stories now about break room jokes and how her manager did this impression of someone from HR. I nodded. I smiled. I even laughed. But I didn't understand the jokes. Not really. They belonged to a world I wasn't invited into. Her fingers danced on her phone screen while she talked. Her eyes never left it. And when I asked, just once, who she was texting, she smiled. The kind of smile that closes a door. Oh, just work stuff, she said, like it was nothing. Then she told me about a team lunch, a funny mix-up at the printer. I forgot what came next. But I remember the weight in my chest that didn't go away. She sets her alarm earlier now. Runs a curling iron through her hair on Mondays. Lipstick. A new podcast about confidence. I want to believe she's blooming. But flowers don't bloom away from the sun that fed them. I told myself to change too. Bought a journal. Tried listening to one of her podcasts. But the words felt hollow in my ears. They weren't meant for me. Then last Thursday, I reached for her hand in bed. She didn't move. Didn't flinch. But she didn't hold it either. Just let it rest between us like a forgotten object. And this morning, her phone buzzed on the counter. Face down. She never used to do that. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. I just glanced, a reflex. Mark. 3 dots. A name I didn't recognize. But that emoji, that's the part that did it. Not the name. Not the message. Just that little smile. Casual. Comfortable. It made something in me flicker and go dim. Not all at once. Not like a flame snuffed out. More like the slow fade of a light bulb you didn't realize was dying. And now I sit in the silence holding a cup of coffee that's gone cold. She's humming again upstairs. A tune I still don't know. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe I'm just tired. Insecure. Wounded from things that have nothing to do with her. Or maybe I've already started grieving something she hasn't even lost yet. Some betrayals don't scream. They whisper for years. I wanted to believe in her. But belief is quiet. Doubt has a voice. And lately, it wouldn't shut up. She was humming when she left that morning. That part stuck with me. It wasn't a song I recognized. Just a tune. Light. Effortless. Like her footsteps as she grabbed her bag and keys, blazer still creased, hair still damp. I held her travel mug in my hand longer than I meant to. Cinnamon, just a dash, the way she used to like it. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and didn't say anything. The door clicked shut behind her. And then it was just me. The sound of a refrigerator hum. The slow drip of the faucet. And the silence, that old, familiar thing climbing back over everything. Her plate was still warm. Mine wasn't. I sat there, staring at toast that had cooled into cardboard. I told myself it was just another Monday. That I was tired. That maybe we both were. But at lunch I opened her Instagram. Not for a reason. Just reflex. No new posts. Just a photo from the week before. A group shot. Smiles. Arms slung over shoulders. Office laughter. And then I saw it. Everyone tagged. Everyone named. Except him. The man beside her. Just there. Too close. Arm brushing hers. Not quite touching, but enough to make my lungs tighten. No name. No mention. Just a presence. A shadow in the frame. I tried to scroll past it. Couldn't. Went back. Looked again. Zoomed in. Still there. Always there. That evening I asked about her day. She said boring. But her eyes lit up in the middle of that word like it was a lie wrapped in ribbon. She called it a dull Monday. But her voice carried something warm. Like she'd found something secret and lovely and couldn't quite hide it. After dinner, I did the laundry. Folded her blouse, the soft blue one with the tiny buttons she always missed. I smoothed the fabric carefully, deliberately, like handling something fragile. Then I saw the receipt. Tucked into her blazer pocket. Faint ink. A cafe I didn't recognize. 2 drinks. 1 muffin. Saturday. She said she worked late. She said the office needed her. That they were launching a client site. But that receipt, it didn't feel like overtime. It felt like a pause. A soft, hidden hour. Something shared. The blouse smelled faintly of something floral. But not her scent. Not mine. Not us. Just something else. I stood in the laundry room for a long time. Not moving. Not breathing. Sometimes it's not what you see. It's what you almost see. What your body recognizes before your brain gives it permission. Belief is quiet. Doubt is loud. And now it whispers in every pocket, every plate, every crease in her clothes. It was always small things. Too small to accuse. Too heavy to ignore. She said she'd be late again. Another team dinner. Third one this month. Fourth if I'm counting Saturday's receipt, and I am. I smiled. Made a joke about her climbing the corporate ladder. She laughed. Lightly. But her eyes didn't meet mine. They landed somewhere just over my shoulder. Like looking directly at me was too heavy. She left in a hurry. Keys. Coat. Lipstick. I listened to the sound of her car pulling out of the driveway, a familiar engine note that somehow didn't feel familiar anymore. Then I sat at the table. Her chair still tucked in, wine glass still half full from the night before. I hadn't touched it. Couldn't. There was dust now. At the edges. Clinging to the red like time had passed and no one said anything about it. I thought about pouring it out. About cleaning the glass and pretending none of it meant anything. Instead, I stared at it. Then I opened her laptop. Not for anything specific. Just to feel close. To feel part of a life I could still reach. It asked for a password. It had never asked before. It wasn't anger that hit me, it was something quieter. Like standing outside your own home and realizing the locks have changed. Not because you forgot the key. Because someone didn't want you to come in. I closed it slowly. Set it back exactly where I'd found it. The hum of the fridge suddenly louder in the silence. She came home late. Again. Humming. Not tired, dragging feet kind of humming. But buoyant. Warm. The sound of someone recently held. She kissed my cheek. Missed you, she said. It was a whisper. Soft. Like a bedtime story you don't fully believe. Her coat brushed mine as she hung it up. And I caught it, that cologne again. Sharp. Clean. Too expensive. Too new. Not the one I wear. Not the one we ever bought together. Later, after she drifted off beside me, I sat upright. Still. Listening to her breath. Her phone glowed on the nightstand. Buzzed once. No preview. Notifications hidden. Face down. Always face down now. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not touching it. Not daring. Just listening to the buzz echo inside me. It wasn't about who was messaging her. It was about who she was protecting. Because she wasn't guarding me from the pain anymore. She was guarding him. And suddenly I realized. It's not that she's tired. Not that we're drifting. It's that I'm in the way. You can only stare at a closed door for so long. Before you start listening through it. Quietly. Carefully. Like you're learning a language that wants to forget you. I stopped asking how her day went. It wasn't a decision. More like a slow surrender. One day, the words just didn't come out. And she didn't notice. Or if she did, she let it pass, like everything else between us now. In their place, I started noticing. When she said late meeting, I made a note. When she said team dinner, I checked the places she used to love, the ones she tagged in happier days. None of them matched. But the card charges did. Different names. Trendier spots. Not her usual favorites. Not ours. Hidden in plain sight under dining business. Funny how easy it is to miss betrayal when it looks like routine. I told myself I was just being cautious. But truthfully, I was adapting. Like learning to breathe through smoke when you're not ready to run yet. Then, one morning, while she showered, I stood outside the bathroom door. Not to listen. Just to hear. She used to hum in the mornings. Not loud, not for performance. Just gentle, familiar melodies. A soft kind of presence. But now silence. Just water. Steam. And absence. I tried something that afternoon. Something small. Almost sweet. I picked up her favorite coffee, the one with cardamom and oat milk, and drove to her office. She didn't know I was coming. I wasn't there to catch her. I just wanted to see her. Maybe remind her of a time when we surprised each other without suspicion. I parked across the street. Watched as the building lights dimmed, one floor at a time. And then there she was. Not alone. He walked beside her. Confident. Close, but not touching. That's what made it worse. If he'd grabbed her hand, it would have been simpler. Final. Something to rage against. But this was gentler. Intimate in its restraint. He leaned in slightly. Not too close. Just enough to make her laugh. And she did that thing she always did when she felt seen. When she liked being seen. She brushed her hair behind her ear. Smiled with her eyes down. I hadn't seen that smile in months. I held the coffee in my hand, fingers curled too tight around the cup. It was still warm. Still full. Something I brought for her. Something that would never reach her. They turned the corner together. No goodbyes. No glances back. Like whatever they were walking toward didn't need explaining. I stayed there long after they disappeared. The coffee cooling beside me. And in that quiet, I understood something. Sometimes love doesn't shatter. It drips. Leaks through the cracks you were too polite to seal. She told me it was just a project. But her voice had a softness like guilt rehearsed. And I stopped believing her halfway through her sentence. She came home glowing again. That glow, the one that used to be mine. Windswept hair, flushed cheeks. Like she'd just stepped out of a memory that didn't include me. I was at the sink rinsing 2 coffee mugs. One of them hadn't been touched all day. She hung her coat like she always did. Casual. Controlled. Sorry, I missed your call, she said. Had to stay back with Mark. We're presenting to the regional team this week. Mark. There it was. Said so easily. Like it meant nothing. Like she hadn't laughed at something he said 3 nights ago while I watched from across the street, gripping coffee that went cold in my hand. She spoke his name the way you talk about weather. Like it was harmless. Expected. Routine. I stared at the mug. The one she used to love. The one I kept pouring coffee into, hoping she'd sit with me again. Want to watch something? I asked. We could just sit. She smiled. But her smile stopped before her eyes. Too tired, she said. Brains fried. And yet 2 hours later, I passed the living room on my way to bed and there she was. Still awake. Still glowing. Lip blue by her phone screen, thumb scrolling, lips curled in a smile that didn't belong to me anymore. Not tired, just full. With something I couldn't give her. I stood in the hallway longer than I should have. Long enough to hear her laugh once. Soft. Like a secret slipping through. The next morning, I found her blazer draped over the back of the chair. I picked it up to hang. Something slipped from the pocket, light, papery. It fluttered to the floor like it had been waiting. A conference pass. Dated 2 years ago. 2 years. Before this job. Before the new team. Before Mark was ever mentioned. Except, maybe not. On the back of the badge, a message was scrawled in black ink. You're the only part of this trip I'll remember. No name. Just an initial. M. I stood there, holding it in both hands like a fragile thing. Ran my thumb over the faded words. That curve in the Y. That slant in the R. The handwriting looked familiar. And I knew. She hadn't met him at work. He wasn't some accidental connection. He wasn't new. She went back to him. Not a spark. A return. And that was the part one hadn't prepared for. That this wasn't just betrayal. It was history she'd hidden inside herself and resurrected when I stopped paying attention. I sat down with the badge still in my hands. Stared at the ink until it blurred. She said it was just a project. But the guilt was already old. I didn't confront her. I folded her laundry. Held her lies like delicate fabric, afraid they'd tear if I pulled too hard. I moved through the house like a guest. Stepping around her shoes instead of beside them. Opening drawers softly like the wood might accuse me of making noise I wasn't allowed to make anymore. I stopped trying to match her pace. Stopped trying to speak first. She was always busy now. Late calls, early meetings. Mark's name slipped in sparingly like seasoning, never the main dish, but always there. I folded her laundry that evening. Each blouse, each scarf, handled with care. Not out of affection. Out of fear. Because truth is fragile when it's disguised as routine. And part of me still hoped maybe if I folded her life perfectly it wouldn't unravel. She smiled at me over the fridge door. A half smile, casual. Thoughtless. It wasn't for me. I began answering questions she never asked. I'm fine, I'd offer before she glanced up. I'll do the groceries. I know you're busy. I thought I was being kind. But really, I was clearing the path. Making it easier for her to disappear through it. That night, I stood outside our bedroom door. My hand hovered above the knob, not quite touching it. Inside, I heard her laugh, a soft kind of laugh. The kind you save for someone who doesn't know you use to laugh like that with someone else. Then I heard it, the name. Muffled. Not quite clear. But shaped with a tone I hadn't heard in months. Mark. She caught herself. Fell silent. And so did I. I walked away. Didn't knock. Didn't ask. I slept on the couch. She didn't ask why. But in the morning, my pillow was fluffed. The blanket folded neatly like she cared. And somehow that small kindness hurt more than silence. Because it meant she knew. And still chose not to speak. I wanted to scream. To shatter the framed photo above the mantel. To throw the untouched mug she used to love across the wall and watch it explode. But I didn't. I drove instead. Nowhere in particular. Just away. In circles. In silence. Until I ended up back at that cafe. The one from the receipt. The one that had stayed in the lining of her coat pocket for days before I found it. I parked across the street. Waited. At 5:43 p.m. they walked out. Side by side. Talking. No hand-holding. No kiss. Nothing that could be photographed. But as they reached the curb, she reached for his sleeve. Just a brush of her fingers like muscle memory. And he let her. Didn't flinch. Didn't stop her. Like it had happened before. Like it belonged to them. There's a moment when your heart stops begging. Not because it's healed. But because it's done speaking a language no one listens to. She left early again. No kiss. No glance. Just the rustle of a bag strap, the buzz of her phone, and the quick shuffle of heels on wood. That nervous energy, I used to love it. Used to think it meant she was excited to see me. But this morning, it smelled like perfume I didn't buy and silence I didn't earn. I sat at the edge of the bed. Watched the door close. Listened for the car. Listened until I couldn't. The blanket beside me still held the shape of her. A shallow imprint. Warm. Temporary. Something inside me pulled, not a snap exactly. More like a thread loosening, as if a seam I hadn't noticed had been wearing thin for years. No rage. No panic. Just quiet. A room that no longer felt mutual. I didn't check her location. Didn't search her bank app. Didn't refresh his Instagram to see if he'd slipped again. Instead, I stood. Walked around the bed. Opened the drawer on her side. I hadn't looked in there for months. Inside, the usual time capsules. Movie stubs. The birthday card I wrote her when we still surprised each other. A dried flower, faded lilac, pressed flat. From our first anniversary. I remember giving it to her in a napkin at that tiny Greek place. She cried that night. Happy tears. She said she felt seen. Underneath that flower was another one. Glossier. Preserved. Newer. Red. I reached deeper. My fingers brushed cardboard. A box. Smooth edges. Neat. Like it had been placed carefully, not hidden, but saved. I lifted it out. Opened the lid. Inside, a single folded photo. Creased once down the middle like she'd looked at it enough times to soften the fold. It was her. Mid-laugh. Head tilted back, sun on her face. From the same conference. 2 years ago. But behind her, him. Not posing. Not smiling. Just there. Blurry. Close. Arm resting behind her chair like it belonged there. Not temptation. Not curiosity. Comfort. This wasn't a recent detour. This wasn't a bad moment, a single slip, a fragile heart swept up by a new voice. This was history. A decision I was never part of. A timeline that started before I even knew I should be watching. I set the photo on the bed. Not with anger. Not with reverence. Just placed it. Then sat across from it. Like it was a guest in the room. I didn't cry. Didn't speak. I just stared. And somewhere in that silence, something finished breaking. Not her trust. Not the marriage. Me. I waited in silence. Not to catch her. But to let her feel how much I already knew. I didn't pretend that night. No forced smile. No half-hearted "how was work?" Just the mug, her favorite one, placed carefully on the counter, rim dusted with cinnamon. Still warm. Still waiting. She stepped through the door, slower than usual. Something about the stillness made her stop. Like walking into a room where someone's crying even if they've already wiped their face. You okay? She asked. Too soft. Too careful. Like a hand hovering above a cracked glass, not sure if touching it will make it shatter. I nodded once. Looked at the mug. Then at her. Did you see him today? The words weren't sharp. They didn't rise. They just existed. Like fog. Light but unshakable. She froze. Not visibly. Not theatrically. Just for a breath. One heartbeat too long. Then the lie came. No. Why? That why. She always used it. Like a defense. As if returning the question could dissolve the answer. I didn't say anything. Just stepped to the side. Pointed to the photo on the table. The one I'd placed hours before. The one I'd sat across from like a guest I couldn't get rid of. She didn't reach for it. Didn't touch it. Didn't even blink. Just stared at herself, frozen in laughter, beside a man whose name I hadn't spoken until it was already too late to matter. I wanted her to say something. Anything. But I also didn't. Was it ever me? I asked. Not angry. Not broken. Just hollow. The kind of hollow that makes your voice echo inside your own skull. She sat down slowly. Not in defeat, not yet, but with the weight of someone who finally realized she'd been caught in a truth too old to deny. Her breath caught. A tiny sound. Like paper crumpling. Then quietly, I thought it was over with him. I swear I did. I nodded. Not because I believed her, but because I finally understood something worse. It had never really started with me. I was the detour, the rest stop, the quiet life she tried on when the past got too loud. And now the past had come home, wearing a newer scent, answering her messages at night, holding space in places I used to fill. I turned away, not dramatically, just enough, because if I looked at her any longer I'd mistake the ache in her eyes for love. And I wasn't about to lie to myself too. There was no yelling, no plates, no slammed doors, just the sound of something unspoken finally being heard. She cried that night. Not for me. I could see that clearly. Her sobs weren't the kind that reach out. They were internal, folded in, the kind of crying people do when they're grieving their own guilt. She clutched her phone like it had answers, like it could rewind time or forward past this moment, anything but sit in it. I stood in the hallway just outside the doorframe, watched her shoulders tremble, watched her fold inward as if the lie she'd carried had finally started to crush her. I didn't move, didn't speak. I didn't want to interrupt. She cried, but not for me. She cried for the part of her that got caught. We slept in the same bed that night. Her back to me, mine to her. For inches of mattress between us and it felt like miles. I kept my eyes on the ceiling. She kept her hand near her phone. In the morning I didn't make coffee. Didn't ask if she wanted toast. I didn't ask if she needed anything at all. I sat in the living room. Curtains open. Hands still. Mine still racing. She walked past with puffy eyes and wet hair. Still beautiful. Still hers. But no longer mine. At the door, she paused. Turned slightly. Her lips parted just a little. And for one fragile second, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd say something real. But she didn't. Nothing came. Just air. And then the door. Days passed. She stayed. Technically. Her clothes in the closet. Her charger on the nightstand. But she moved like a guest. Every drawer she opened felt like it wasn't hers to touch. Every dish she rinsed looked like she expected it might be her last. I didn't stop her. Didn't ask her to explain. The truth no longer needed translation. She had already left. Long before the suitcase. Long before Mark. Her body stayed. But her loyalty, her warmth had been absent long enough to get its mail forwarded. That Sunday she packed a small bag. She came home glowing. I told myself it was the job. But somewhere between her new smile and my silence, something changed. She came home glowing. Not just smiling, glowing. The kind of brightness that feels like it came from somewhere else. Like she'd stepped into sunlight and hadn't fully come back. She said work was going well. That she'd finally clicked with her new team. New clients, new energy. It's a good stretch, she called it, dropping her bag by the door like it didn't weigh her down. I told myself that was good. Healthy. That I should be happy for her. But I watched her slip off her heels, hum a tune I didn't recognize, and lean against the kitchen counter with a kind of ease that didn't belong to us. She told stories now about break room jokes and how her manager did this impression of someone from HR. I nodded. I smiled. I even laughed. But I didn't understand the jokes. Not really. They belonged to a world I wasn't invited into. Her fingers danced on her phone screen while she talked. Her eyes never left it. And when I asked, just once, who she was texting, she smiled. The kind of smile that closes a door. Oh, just work stuff, she said, like it was nothing. Then she told me about a team lunch, a funny mix-up at the printer. I forgot what came next. But I remember the weight in my chest that didn't go away. She sets her alarm earlier now. Runs a curling iron through her hair on Mondays. Lipstick. A new podcast about confidence. I want to believe she's blooming. But flowers don't bloom away from the sun that fed them. I told myself to change too. Bought a journal. Tried listening to one of her podcasts. But the words felt hollow in my ears. They weren't meant for me. Then last Thursday I reached for her hand in bed. She didn't move. Didn't flinch. But she didn't hold it either. Just let it rest between us like a forgotten object. And this morning, her phone buzzed on the counter. Face down. She never used to do that. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. I just glanced, a reflex. Mark. 3 dots. A name I didn't recognize. But that emoji, that's the part that did it. Not the name. Not the message. Just that little smile. Casual. Comfortable. It made something in me flicker and go dim. Not all at once. Not like a flame snuffed out. More like the slow fade of a light bulb you didn't realize was dying. And now I sit in the silence holding a cup of coffee that's gone cold. She's humming again upstairs. A tune I still don't know. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe I'm just tired. Insecure. wounded from things that have nothing to do with her. Or maybe I've already started grieving something she hasn't even lost yet. Some betrayals don't scream. They whisper for years.